Admiral Vex Thari's flagship, the Cosmic Dominion, hung in space like a gleaming monument to Solarian technological superiority. The massive vessel was 3 kilometers long, armed with weapons that could destroy planets and protected by energy shields that had never been penetrated. But now, for the first time in his career, the Admiral was facing a problem he couldn't solve with superior firepower. The human fleet was not behaving according to any tactical manual. They used weapons that should have been obsolete centuries ago. They fought with chaotic, unpredictable strategies that made no logical sense. Worst of all, they were winning. From the bridge of the Indomitable Spirit, Captain Hyun-woo watched the enemy flagship through the main viewer. The alien vessel was beautiful in its own way, but he knew it represented everything that was wrong with the Solarian approach to warfare. They relied too heavily on technology, and not enough on the people who used it. Captain, Communications Officer Taemin Jang reported, Admiral Vex Thari is broadcasting on all channels. He's redirecting half of his remaining fleet to hunt us down specifically. Lieutenant Commander Ji-Hai Park looked up from her engineering console with concern. Half the Grand Armada? That's over 100 ships. He knows we're the key to human resistance, Chief Tactical Officer Yoon Ji-moon observed. If he can destroy us, the other ships will lose their coordination and morale. Hyun-woo studied the tactical display. The enemy was right. The Indomitable Spirit had become the backbone of the human fleet's communications and strategy. Without their isolated computer systems, the other ships would be vulnerable to cyber attacks. Without their proven kinetic weapons, the fleet would lose its main advantage. He wants to make this personal, Hyun-woo said quietly. Fine. We'll give him a chase he won't forget. Navigation Officer Dong-hyun Lee was already plotting courses through the outer solar system. If we head toward Jupiter, we can use the gas giant's gravity well and magnetic fields to our advantage. The enemy ships are faster than us, but they might not be as structurally sound. Weapons specialist So Young Choi checked their ammunition reserves. We're down to emergency supplies on railgun rounds. But Supply Officer Sujin Yang has been working miracles with the fabricators. Sujin nodded from her station. I've got the industrial replicators producing ammunition around the clock. We can maintain fire for maybe 2 more hours of sustained combat. Medical Officer Hae-won Kim had been treating wounded crew members from the recent battles. We've got 17 injured, but no fatalities yet. The thick armor has been protecting us better than anyone expected. As the Indomitable Spirit began its journey toward Jupiter, the pursuing Solarian ships spread out in a hunting formation. Their superior speed allowed them to gradually close the distance, but Hyun-woo's crew used every trick they had learned during decades of service. Sensor operator Min-ho Kang monitored the enemy approach with his enhanced detection systems. They're trying to box us in. 3 groups of ships moving to cut off our escape routes. Let them come, Hyun-woo replied. We're not running away. We're drawing them into a trap. The trap was Jupiter itself. The massive planet's gravity well and intense radiation field created hazards that most ships avoided. But the Indomitable Spirit had been built to operate in dangerous environments. Its thick armor and robust shielding could handle conditions that would cripple more advanced vessels. Lieutenant Jae-hyun prepared the weapon systems for the coming engagement. If we're going to fight over 100 enemy ships, we need to make every shot count. The first pursuing ships caught up with them near Europa, one of Jupiter's moons. The Solarian vessels opened fire with their plasma weapons, filling space with deadly energy beams. But the human ship had learned to use the moon's gravitational field to assist their evasive maneuvers. Using Europa's gravity to slingshot around the moon, Dong-hyun reported, the enemy ships are having trouble compensating for the gravitational effects. The Indomitable Spirit whipped around Europa at incredible speed, using the moon's gravity to accelerate beyond what their engines could achieve alone. The pursuing ships tried to follow, but their lighter construction couldn't handle the extreme gravitational stresses. 2 enemy ships just suffered structural failures, Yoon-ji reported with satisfaction. Their hulls cracked under the gravitational strain, but more ships were arriving every minute. Admiral Vex Thari was clearly determined to destroy the troublesome human vessel, regardless of the cost. Plasma beams began to overwhelm even the old ship's thick armor. Hull breaches on multiple decks, Ji-hai reported. I'm rerouting power from non-essential systems to maintain life support. The running battle continued through Jupiter's moon system. The Indomitable Spirit used Io's volcanic activity to mask their heat signature. flew through Ganymede's thin atmosphere to confuse enemy sensors, and skimmed so close to Callisto that pursuing ships crashed into the moon's surface. But the enemy was relentless. For every ship they lost to navigational hazards, 2 more arrived to join the hunt. The Solarian forces seemed willing to sacrifice dozens of vessels to destroy the human prototype. "Captain," Taman said urgently, "I'm receiving a message from Admiral Vexithari. He wants to speak with you directly." "Put it through." The alien admiral's image appeared on the main screen. Vexithari looked like most Solarians, tall, thin, with pale skin and large black eyes. But there was something different about his expression. For the first time, he looked uncertain. "Human captain," the admiral said in translated speech, "your resistance is impressive but ultimately futile. Surrender now and I will grant your crew honorable deaths." Hyunwoo smiled grimly. "Admiral, I appreciate the offer. But we humans have a saying, we'd rather die on our feet than live on our knees." "Then you will die. I am committing every ship in my fleet to your destruction. Your primitive vessel cannot escape the combined might of the Solarian Empire." The communication ended, and immediately the tactical displays showed a massive enemy formation approaching. Admiral Vexithari was making good on his threat. Nearly the entire Grand Armada was converging on Jupiter space. 200 ships enclosing, Minho reported. "We're completely outnumbered." But Hyunwoo had one more desperate plan. Jupiter's Great Red Spot was a massive storm system that had been raging for centuries. The magnetic fields and radiation levels in that region were lethal to most forms of life. No sane ship captain would deliberately fly into that maelstrom. "Plot a course directly into the Great Red Spot," he ordered. His crew stared at him in shock. "Captain," Donghyun said quietly, "that storm will destroy us just as surely as enemy fire." "Maybe. But our ship was built tougher than theirs. If anyone can survive passage through that storm, it's us." As the indomitable spirit dove toward Jupiter's most famous feature, the pursuing Solarian ships hesitated. Even Admiral Vexithari seemed unwilling to follow them into the deadly storm system. But the human crew was committed. They would either find a way to use Jupiter's power against their enemies, or they would die trying. The old ship plunged into the swirling chaos of the Great Red Spot, and everything changed. The space around the indomitable spirit erupted in chaos as 50 Solarian warships converged on their position. Plasma beams filled the void with deadly light, but Captain Hyunwoo's crew had learned to read the enemy's patterns. Energy buildup on 7 ships, sensor operator Minho Kang called out, firing in 4 seconds. Navigation officer Donghyun Lee spun the ship into a corkscrewing dive, presenting the thickest sections of armor to the incoming fire. The ancient hull groaned under the impact but held together. Damage reports flooded in from all sections, but Lieutenant Commander Ji-Hai Park kept the critical systems running. "Hull breaches on decks 4 and 7, she reported. "But the reactor is stable and weapons are online." The ship's unique capabilities were being pushed to their absolute limits. Chief Tactical Officer Yoon Ji-moon coordinated defensive fire, while Weapons Specialist So-young Choi managed targeting for the main guns. The old kinetic weapons fired continuously, their electromagnetic coils glowing red-hot from overuse. Lieutenant Jae Hyun-oh destroyed another enemy ship with a perfectly placed railgun shot. "That's 12 confirmed kills," he announced. "The enemy shields still can't stop our rounds, but the Solarian forces were adapting. Instead of relying purely on energy shields, some ships began using evasive maneuvers to avoid the slower kinetic projectiles. Others tried to overwhelm the human ship with massive volleys of plasma fire. Communications Officer Tae-min Jang was coordinating with the rest of the human fleet. "Captain Admiral Shin is requesting our tactical data. Several ships want to retrofit kinetic weapons based on our success. Send them everything we have," Hyunwoo ordered. "If they can copy our weapons loadout, we might have a chance." Across the battle zone, human ships began desperate improvisations. The heavy cruiser, Determination welded mining equipment to its hull, creating crude railguns. The destroyer Swift Justice loaded its torpedo tubes with solid metal rods instead of standard warheads. Even civilian vessels joined the fight, launching cargo containers and construction materials at enemy formations. Medical Officer Haewon Kim coordinated damage control teams throughout the ship. "We've got casualties on multiple decks," she reported. "But nothing critical yet. The thick armor is saving lives." The battle reached a turning point when the indomitable spirit engaged a Solarian heavy cruiser. The enemy ship was twice their size, armed with weapons that could vaporize a standard human vessel. But size became a disadvantage when facing kinetic weapons that could punch through any defense. So Young targeted the enemy ship's reactor with their largest railgun. "Firing solution locked on their power core," she announced. The massive projectile struck the alien ship amidships, penetrating deep into its interior before exploding. The resulting chain reaction tore the vessel apart from the inside, sending debris scattered across thousands of kilometers. The destruction of such a large enemy ship had an immediate effect on both fleets. Human morale soared, while the Solarian forces seemed to hesitate for the first time since the battle began. "They're not used to losing ships," Yunji observed. "Their whole strategy depends on technological superiority. When that fails, they don't know how to adapt." Admiral Vexthari's response was swift and brutal. Half of the remaining Solarian fleet began converging on the indomitable spirit's position. The alien commander clearly intended to destroy the troublesome human ship regardless of the cost. 200 enemy vessels approaching, Minho reported. "We're about to be completely surrounded." Supply officer Sujin Yang checked their ammunition reserves. "We're down to 30% on railgun rounds. The fabricators can't keep up with this rate of fire." Hyunwoo made a difficult decision. "Signal the fleet. Tell them we're going to conduct a fighting retreat toward the asteroid belt. We need cover and time to resupply." The journey to the asteroid belt became a running battle that lasted for hours. The indomitable spirit used its superior armor to shield other human ships while they all fell back toward Mars' orbit. Enemy plasma beams turned space into a deadly light show. But the old prototype continued to absorb punishment that would have destroyed any other vessel. During a brief lull in the fighting, Dr. Young-Soo Han's ancient AI systems proved their worth in an unexpected way. A massive cyber attack swept through the human fleet, attempting to disable ship computers and weapon systems. Modern vessels with networked computers began, suffering cascade failures. But the indomitable spirit's isolated systems remained completely unaffected. "Our computers are the only ones still working properly," Taemin reported with amazement. "The enemy hackers can't penetrate our firewall because we don't have modern network protocols." This allowed the old ship to coordinate the fleet's movements, while other vessels struggled with compromised systems. Hyunwoo found himself acting as a communications relay for the entire human force. In the asteroid belt, the battle took on a different character. The floating rocks provided cover and opportunities for ambush tactics. The indomitable spirit used its superior structural integrity to ram through asteroid fields that would have crushed lighter vessels. "The enemy ships are having trouble navigating the debris field," Dong-hyun reported. "Their sensors are optimized for open space combat." Yoonji saw the opportunity immediately. "We can use the asteroids as weapons. Our railguns are powerful enough to accelerate large rocks to destructive velocities." The crew began targeting asteroids instead of enemy ships, turning chunks of space rock into massive kinetic projectiles. The improvised ammunition was devastatingly effective against Solarian vessels that weren't designed to deal with such primitive tactics. Other human ships copied the strategy, using mining equipment to hurl asteroids at enemy formations. The Solarian forces, trained for precise energy weapon duels, found themselves fighting a chaotic brawl where anything could become a weapon. As the battle raged through the asteroid belt, something remarkable began happening. The human fleet, which had been retreating in disorder for hours, started to turn the tide. Ships that had been running for their lives began standing and fighting. The heavy cruiser Defiance used improvised kinetic weapons to destroy 3 enemy ships in quick succession. The destroyer pack led by Captain Maria Santos coordinated their attacks to overwhelm Solarian point defenses. Even damaged vessels that could barely fight continued to contribute by using themselves as shields for more effective ships. But it was the indomitable spirit that remained the focal point of human resistance. The old prototype had become a symbol of humanity's refusal to surrender, proof that determination and creativity could overcome technological superiority. "Captain," Taemin said excitedly, "I'm receiving messages from across the fleet. Morale is through the roof. The crews think we can actually win this battle." Hyunwoo looked at the tactical display. The human fleet had lost many ships, but the survivors were fighting with desperate courage. More importantly, they had learned to exploit the enemy's weaknesses. Solarian vessels continued to fall to weapons they had been designed to ignore. All ships, he broadcast to the fleet, continue the attack. Their shields can't stop kinetic weapons, and their tactics can't handle chaos. We fight like humans, not like computers. The response was immediate. Across the battlefield, human ships pressed their attacks with renewed vigor. The careful Solarian formations began to break apart under the pressure of unconventional tactics and weapons they couldn't defend against. For the first time since the battle began, Admiral Vexthari's Grand Armada was in real trouble. The first hour of battle was a nightmare for humanity. Captain Hyunwoo watched from the bridge of the Indomitable Spirit as Solarian plasma beams tore through the human fleet. The enemy ships moved with perfect coordination, their energy shields glowing bright blue as they deflected return fire. The TDF Braveheart just went down, Communications Officer Tae Min Jang reported, his voice tight with stress. That's 18 ships destroyed in the last 60 minutes. Fleet Admiral Kyung-ho Shin's voice came over the emergency channel. All remaining vessels execute fighting retreat pattern Delta. We need to buy time for the evacuation of Earth. Hyunwoo studied the tactical display. The human ships were falling back toward Mars, trying to use the planet's gravity well for cover, but the Solarian forces were too fast and too numerous. At this rate, the entire fleet would be destroyed within hours. Captain, we're receiving direct orders, Taemin said. Admiral Shin wants us to conduct hit-and-run attacks on the enemy flanks. We're supposed to harass their scout ships while the main force retreats. Navigation Officer Dong-hyun Lee shook his head. That's a suicide mission. Our ship is too slow to outrun their interceptors. Maybe that's the point, Weapons Specialist So Young Choi said quietly. Maybe they think we're expendable. Lieutenant Commander Ji-Hai Park looked up from her engineering console. Captain, we don't have to run from them. Our armor is thick enough to take hits that would destroy other ships. And our weapons might actually work against their shields. Hyunwoo made his decision. Set course for the enemy scout formation. We're going to test our theories about kinetic weapons. As the Indomitable Spirit turned toward the enemy, Medical Officer Hae-won Kim made an important discovery. She had been analyzing sensor data from the destroyed human ships looking for patterns in the enemy weapons. Captain, I found something, she called out excitedly. The Solarian plasma weapons emit a specific energy signature right before they fire. It's like a charging cycle. Our sensors can detect it. Sensor operator Min-ho Kang quickly recalibrated his equipment. She's right. I can see the energy buildup in their weapon systems. We'll have about 2 seconds warning before each shot. This information spread quickly through the bridge crew. Chief Tactical Officer Yoon Ji-moon began working out firing solutions based on the enemy's predictable attack patterns. If we know when they're going to shoot, we can time our evasive maneuvers perfectly. The first test came when 3 Solarian scout ships moved to intercept them. The alien vessels were sleek and fast, their hulls covered in the distinctive blue glow of energy shields. They opened fire with plasma cannons, sending bright streams of superheated matter toward the human ship. Energy buildup detected, Min-ho called out. Incoming fire in 3, 2, 1. Dong-hyun executed a sharp turn that brought the ship's thickest armor to bear against the enemy weapons. The plasma beams struck the hull with tremendous force, but the ancient metal plating absorbed the impact. Damage indicators flickered on Ji-Hai's console, but the ship remained intact. Minimal damage to outer hull, she reported with amazement. The armor held. Now it was time to test their own weapons. Lieutenant Jae-hyun-oh targeted the lead enemy ship with the main railgun. The weapon was a massive electromagnetic cannon that fired solid projectiles at incredible speed. Firing solution locked, Jae-hyun announced. Fire, Hyunwoo ordered. The railgun discharged with a deep thrumming sound that vibrated through the entire ship. The projectile, a dense metal slug weighing several tons, crossed the distance between ships in seconds. The result was spectacular. The kinetic round struck the Solarian ship's energy shield and passed right through as if it wasn't there. The projectile punched a hole clean through the alien vessel's hull, causing massive internal explosions. The bridge crew stared in shock as the enemy ship broke apart. Direct hit, Jae-hyun said in disbelief. Their shields didn't stop us at all. So Young was already targeting the second enemy ship. The shields are calibrated for energy weapons. They can't deflect physical projectiles. The remaining 2 scout ships tried to retreat, but the Indomitable Spirit's missile launchers caught them before they could escape. The old-fashioned explosive warheads tore through their hulls like paper. Within minutes, all 3 enemy ships had been destroyed. Impossible, Yoon-ji whispered. staring at her tactical display. "We just killed 3 Solarian ships without taking serious damage." Taman was already broadcasting their success to the rest of the human fleet. "All ships, this is the indomitable spirit. Enemy shields are vulnerable to kinetic weapons. Repeat, kinetic weapons are effective against Solarian shields." The response was immediate. Several human ships began improvising kinetic weapons using whatever they had available. Mining vessels fired chunks of asteroid ore. Construction ships launched tool containers at high speed. Even passenger liners began dumping cargo pods toward enemy formations. But the indomitable spirit had the only purpose-built kinetic weapons in the fleet. As more Solarian ships moved to engage them, the old prototype began to prove its worth. Supply Officer Su Jin Yang worked frantically to keep ammunition flowing to the weapon systems. "We're going through rounds faster than expected," she reported. "But the fabricators are working overtime to produce more." The ship's unique reactor design allowed Ji-Hai to overclock the railguns beyond their normal operating limits. "We're generating twice the standard power output," she called out over the noise of straining machinery. "The weapons are firing at maximum rate." Minho's enhanced sensor capabilities gave them a huge advantage in targeting. While other human ships struggled to track the fast-moving alien vessels, the indomitable spirit could predict enemy movements with remarkable accuracy. "Another formation approaching," he reported. 6 ships moving in standard attack pattern. Hyunwoo had learned to trust his crew's expertise. "Yoonji, plot an intercept course. Jaehyun, prepare a full missile barrage. So Young, target their lead ship with the main gun." The engagement was over in minutes. The Solarian ships, designed to fight opponents using energy weapons, had no defense against the barrage of kinetic rounds and explosive missiles. Their perfect formation became a liability, as debris from destroyed ships damaged neighboring vessels. News of the indomitable spirit's success spread through both fleets. The human ships began to rally, inspired by the proof that the enemy could be defeated. The Solarian forces, meanwhile, seemed confused by the unexpected resistance. Admiral Vexit Thari, commander of the Grand Armada, broadcast a message to his fleet. The translation came through the human communication systems as a series of angry clicking sounds, but the meaning was clear. "The aliens were frustrated by the humans' primitive tactics. They're not used to fighting opponents who use physical weapons," Yoonji observed. "Their entire military doctrine is based on energy shield technology." As the battle continued, the indomitable spirit found itself becoming the focal point of the entire engagement. Other human ships began following their lead, using the old prototype as a shield while they improvised their own kinetic weapons. But the enemy was learning too. Additional Solarian ships began moving to surround the troublesome human vessel. Admiral Vexithari clearly intended to destroy the ship that was disrupting his perfect battle plan. "Captain," Dong-hyun said quietly, "we're about to have a lot more company. I count at least 50 enemy ships converging on our position." Hyunwoo looked around the bridge at his crew. They had proven that humanity could fight back against superior technology. Now they needed to survive long enough to make that victory meaningful. "All stations, prepare for sustained combat. This is going to get rough." The indomitable spirit raced through space toward Earth at maximum speed. Captain Hyunwoo had ordered all non-essential systems shut down to give more power to the engines. The ship groaned and vibrated as it pushed beyond its normal limits, but the old hull held together. Lieutenant Commander Ji-Hai Park spent most of her time in the engine room, watching the ancient fusion antimatter reactor. The reactor was a hybrid design that newer ships had abandoned years ago. Modern vessels used pure antimatter reactors that were smaller and more efficient. But Ji-Hai knew something that the designers of newer ships had forgotten. The old hybrid reactor could produce massive amounts of raw power when pushed to its limits. "The power output is incredible," she told Hyun-woo when he visited the engine room. "Modern reactors are more stable, but they can't match our peak energy levels. If we need to overclock our weapon systems, this old reactor might be our biggest advantage." In the ship's computer core, the ancient artificial intelligence systems hummed quietly. Dr. Young-Soo Han had designed these systems 25 years ago, before anyone knew how advanced alien computer technology really was. The AI was primitive compared to modern standards, but it had one important feature that newer systems lacked. It was completely isolated from external networks. Chief Tactical Officer Yoon Ji-moon discovered this advantage by accident while running combat simulations. "Captain, our AI can't be hacked," she reported excitedly. "Modern ship computers are designed to share information with other vessels in the fleet. That makes them vulnerable to cyber attacks, but our system doesn't have those connections. An enemy hacker would have to physically board our ship to access our computers." Weapons specialist So Young Choi had been studying the ship's armament with new interest. The indomitable spirit carried weapons that other human ships had stopped using. Instead of energy weapons like lasers and plasma cannons, their primary armament consisted of massive railguns and missile launchers. "Everyone thinks kinetic weapons are outdated," So Young explained to the weapons crew. "Energy weapons are faster and don't require ammunition. But I've been reading reports from the recent battles. The Solarian ships have shields that are specifically designed to stop energy weapons. Their defensive systems might not be calibrated for old-fashioned projectiles." Lieutenant Jae-hyun, who operated the main gunnery controls, was fascinated by this possibility. "You mean our ancient guns might actually work better than modern weapons?" "Maybe. We won't know until we try." Navigation Officer Dong-hyun Lee had been studying the ship's construction reports. "I found something interesting in the old files. When this ship was built, the designers made the hull much thicker than standard. They didn't have access to the lightweight armor materials that modern ships use, so they just used more metal. The result is that our armor is primitive but incredibly thick." Sensor operator Min-ho Kang looked up from his console.
"How thick?"
"In some places, our hull is 3 times thicker than a modern cruiser. It makes us slower and less maneuverable, but it might also make us much harder to destroy." Medical Officer Haewon Kim had been reviewing casualty reports from the recent battles. What she discovered made her call an emergency meeting with the senior officers. "The Solarian weapons emit a specific type of energy signature," she explained to the group, gathered in the ship's small briefing room. "It's a byproduct of their plasma technology. Most human ships can't detect this signature because their sensors are designed to filter out what they consider background radiation." Communications Officer Tai Min Jang leaned forward. "But our sensors are different?" "Exactly. Our old-fashioned detection systems don't have the same filtering protocols. We might be able to track enemy weapons fire more accurately than modern ships." Supply Officer Soo-jin Yang had been working on ammunition supplies. "If we're really going into battle with kinetic weapons, we need to think about logistics. Modern ships can fight as long as their reactors hold out, but we need physical ammunition for our guns." Hyunwoo nodded. "How much do we have?" "Enough for maybe 2 hours of continuous combat. But I've been talking to some of the crew members who used to work in munitions manufacturing. They think we might be able to manufacture additional rounds using the ship's industrial fabricators." As the ship continued its journey toward Earth, more reports came in from the war zone. The news was uniformly bad. The Solarian Grand Armada was advancing steadily through human space, destroying everything in its path. Their ships moved in perfect formation, protected by energy shields that seemed impossible to penetrate. But as the crew of the Indomitable Spirit studied the battle reports, they began to notice patterns that other analysts had missed. The enemy ships all used similar shield frequencies. Their weapons all had the same energy signature. Their tactics were efficient but predictable. "They're fighting like a computer program," Yoonji observed. "Very precise, very effective, but not very creative." Dong-hyun was looking at tactical displays of the recent battles. "Look at this. In every engagement, the Solarian ships maintain exact distances from each other. They never deviate from their formation, even when it might be tactically advantageous. That suggests they're following a rigid battle plan," Hyunwoo said. "If we can figure out their pattern, we might be able to predict their movements." Min-ho had been analyzing the sensor data from destroyed human ships. "Captain, I think I found something important. The Solarian ships scan their targets before attacking, but they only use active sensors. They're not designed to fight opponents who might be using passive detection systems." "Meaning what exactly?" "Meaning they might not realize we're tracking them until we start shooting." As Earth grew larger in the viewports, the crew of the Indomitable Spirit felt a mixture of fear and excitement. They were heading into a battle against enemies with superior technology and overwhelming numbers. By any rational calculation, they should be terrified. But something strange was happening aboard the old ship. As the crew discovered the unique advantages of their obsolete vessel, their confidence grew. They began to realize that their ship wasn't just different from modern vessels. In some ways, it might actually be better. The fusion antimatter reactor could generate more power than any modern engine. The thick armor could absorb damage that would cripple newer ships. The isolated computer systems couldn't be hacked. The kinetic weapons might penetrate shields designed to stop energy attacks. Most importantly, the crew had spent years learning to make obsolete technology work through creativity and determination. They knew their ship better than anyone else in the fleet knew theirs. When they finally arrived in the Sol system, the scope of the battle became clear. The Solarian Grand Armada filled space near Jupiter's orbit. Hundreds of alien ships moved in perfect formation, their hulls gleaming with advanced armor and energy shields. Facing them were the surviving ships of the Terran Defense Force. Only 47 vessels remained, scattered and damaged from their retreat through human space. Fleet Admiral Kyung-Ho Shin's voice crackled over the communication system. "All ships, this is our final stand. We fight here or humanity falls." Hyunwoo looked around the bridge at his crew. They were ready. Captain Hyunwoo Kim stood on the bridge of the Indomitable Spirit, watching the stars through the main viewport. The ship was old, maybe the oldest warship still in service with the Terran Defense Force. Built 25 years ago, it had been designed as humanity's answer to alien military technology. Now most people called it a waste of space and resources. The bridge was quiet except for the soft humming of ancient computers and the occasional beep from monitoring stations. Lieutenant Commander Ji-Hai Park worked at her engineering console, checking the ship's systems for the 100th time that week. She was the only person who truly understood how the ship's strange mix of human and alien technology worked together. "Captain, we're getting another message from command," said Communications Officer Taemin Jang. His voice sounded tired. They had been on patrol in the Outer Rim for 3 months without seeing anything more exciting than a broken mining drone. Hyunwoo walked over to Taemin's station. "What do they want now?" "The usual. They want to know why we haven't found any enemy activity in Sector 7. Taemin shook his head. "They keep sending us to empty space and then ask why we don't find anything." Navigation Officer Dong-Hyun Lee looked up from his charts. "Maybe that's the point. Maybe they want us out here where we can't embarrass them." The crew knew the truth. Earth's military leaders were ashamed of the Indomitable Spirit. When the ship was built, humanity had high hopes for it. The designers had taken the best human engineering and mixed it with technology stolen from crashed alien ships. The result was powerful but strange. The ship didn't look like other human vessels and it didn't fight like them either. But by the time the ship was finished, Earth had made contact with several alien races. These aliens had much more advanced technology than humans expected. Suddenly, the Indomitable Spirit seemed primitive and backward. Earth's leaders quickly built a new fleet using purely alien designs. The old prototype was forgotten, sent to patrol empty space with a crew of misfits and troublemakers. Weapons Specialist. So-Young Choi was checking the ship's guns when she noticed something on her scanner. "Captain, I'm picking up a signal. It's weak, but it's definitely there." Hyunwoo hurried to her station. "What kind of signal?" "Distress call. It's coming from the mining colony on Kepler 442b. The signal is old, maybe 2 days." Chief Tactical Officer Yoon Ji-moon frowned. 2 days? Why didn't we hear it before?" Ji-Hai answered from her engineering station. "Our communication array is different from standard fleet equipment. We can pick up signals that other ships miss, but sometimes we're slow to detect them." Hyunwoo made his decision quickly. "Set course for Kepler 442b. Maximum speed." As the ship turned toward the distant planet, sensor operator Minho Kang began scanning ahead. What he found made his blood run cold. "Captain, I'm detecting debris in orbit around the planet." "Lots of it. Can you identify the source?" Minho worked frantically at his controls. The ship's old sensors were slow but very thorough. "It looks like civilian ships, sir. Maybe a dozen of them. They've been destroyed recently." The bridge fell silent. Everyone knew what this meant. For months, there had been rumors about attacks on human colonies. Ships would arrive at mining worlds or research stations to find nothing but wreckage. The attacks were always the same. No survivors, no witnesses, no clues about who was responsible. When they reached Kepler 442b, the scope of the destruction became clear. The mining colony had been completely destroyed. Buildings had been reduced to rubble. The orbital platforms where workers lived and processed minerals were nothing but twisted metal, floating in space. Medical Officer Haiwan Kim joined them on the bridge to see the damage. How many people lived here? According to our files, about 3,000. Dong-hyun answered quietly. Haiwan closed her eyes. Any chance of survivors? Minho shook his head. I'm not detecting any life signs on the planet or in the debris field. Supply Officer Sujin Yang had been running calculations on her tablet. Captain, this attack pattern matches the reports from 7 other colonies. Someone is systematically destroying human settlements in this sector. Hyunwoo studied the debris field through the main viewer. Can we determine what kind of weapons were used? Lieutenant Jae-hyun, who operated the gunnery systems, had been analyzing the wreckage. The damage patterns are consistent with high-energy plasma weapons. Very advanced ones. This wasn't done by pirates or rebels. Aliens, Yoonji said simply. Before anyone could respond, Taiman's communication console lit up with urgent signals. Captain, I'm receiving a priority message from Fleet Command. It's encrypted with the highest security codes. Put it through to my ready room. The rest of you continue scanning the area for any evidence. In the privacy of his small office, Hyunwoo listened to the message with growing horror. Fleet Admiral Kyung-ho Shin's voice was strained and urgent. The Solarian Empire, one of the most powerful alien civilizations in the galaxy, had declared war on humanity. Their Grand Armada, consisting of over 300 advanced warships, was already attacking human colonies throughout the outer systems. Earth's main fleet had engaged the enemy near the Centauri system. The battle had been a disaster. 47 human ships had been destroyed in less than 6 hours. The survivors were retreating toward Earth, hoping to make a final stand in the Sol system. All available ships were ordered to return to Earth immediately. Even old forgotten vessels like the Indomitable Spirit. Hyunwoo returned to the bridge with a heavy heart. His crew looked at him expectantly, sensing that everything was about to change. We have new orders, he announced. We're returning to Earth immediately. The Terran Defense Force is under attack. The crew exchanged worried glances, but no one questioned the order. They had trained for this moment, even though they never really believed it would come. As the Indomitable Spirit turned away from the destroyed colony, Hyunwoo wondered if their old ship would make any difference in the coming battle. The Solarian Empire had technology that was centuries ahead of human science. Their ships were faster, more heavily armed, and protected by energy shields that human weapons couldn't penetrate. But as he watched his crew work with quiet efficiency, Hyunwoo felt a spark of hope. These people had spent years maintaining and improving an obsolete ship. They had learned to make the impossible work through determination and creativity. If anyone could find a way to hurt the enemy, it would be them. The journey to Earth would take 5 days. Hyunwoo knew those might be the last peaceful days his crew would ever see. The great red spot of Jupiter was like flying through the heart of hell itself. Massive winds that could tear apart mountains whipped around the Indomitable Spirit as the ship dove deeper into the storm. Lightning bolts the size of continents crackled through the swirling atmosphere, and the radiation levels climbed to deadly heights. Captain Hyunwoo gripped his command chair as the ship bucked and rolled through the chaos. Hull stress is approaching critical levels, Lieutenant Commander Ji-Hai Park shouted over the noise of straining metal. But the old armor is holding together better than I expected. Behind them, only the most determined Solarian ships had followed them into the storm. Admiral Vexthuri's flagship led a formation of 30 vessels, their energy shields glowing brighter as they tried to protect themselves from Jupiter's fury. The enemy ships are having trouble maintaining formation, Sensor Operator Minho Kang reported. Their lighter hulls can't handle the gravitational stress like ours can. Navigation Officer Dong-hyun, Lee was fighting to keep the ship stable as they rode the storm currents deeper into Jupiter's atmosphere. Captain, I'm detecting a massive electrical buildup in the storm system. This whole area is about to experience a lightning event like nothing we've ever seen. Hyunwoo saw the opportunity immediately. Can we use Jupiter's magnetic field to amplify our weapons? Chief Tactical Officer Yoon Ji-moon was already running calculations. If we time it right, we might be able to channel the planet's electrical energy through our railgun systems. It would be incredibly dangerous, but the power levels would be enormous. The plan was insane, but it was their only chance. The Indomitable Spirit positioned itself in the heart of the storm, while the pursuing Solarian ships struggled to maintain pursuit. Admiral Vexthuri's flagship was closing in, its massive weapons preparing to fire. All power to the railgun systems, Hyunwoo ordered. Ji-hee, Can you overload the reactor without destroying the ship? I can try, she replied, her hands flying over the engineering controls. But if this goes wrong, the explosion will be visible from Earth. Weapons specialist So Young Choi targeted the enemy flagship with their main gun. Firing solution locked on the Cosmic Dominion. One shot, Captain. If we miss, we won't get another chance. The storm around them reached its peak intensity. Lightning bolts began connecting the various Jovian moons, creating a web of electrical energy that spanned millions of kilometers. The indomitable spirit sat right in the center of this cosmic power grid. Now, Hyunwoo shouted. Ji-hai triggered the reactor overload at the exact moment that So Young fired the railgun. The massive electromagnetic weapon drew power not just from the ship's reactor, but from Jupiter itself. The planet's magnetic field channeled billions of volts of electricity through the gun's coils. The projectile that emerged was not just a piece of metal. It was a concentrated bolt of planetary energy, moving at nearly the speed of light. When it struck Admiral Vexithari's flagship, the result was spectacular. The Cosmic Dominion simply ceased to exist. The kinetic round, supercharged with Jupiter's power, didn't just penetrate the enemy ship's shields and armor. It unmade them at the molecular level. Where the 3-kilometer flagship had been, there was now only expanding plasma and debris. The destruction of their command ship sent shockwaves through the entire Solarian fleet. For a moment, the surviving enemy vessels seemed paralyzed by the loss of their leader. Communications officer Tai-Min Zhang was monitoring enemy transmissions. Captain, their fleet coordination is breaking down. Without Admiral Vexthari, they don't seem to know what to do. But the indomitable spirit had paid a heavy price for its victory. The reactor overload had caused massive damage throughout the ship. Life support was failing on multiple decks, and the weapon systems were completely burned out. We're dead in space, Ji-hai reported grimly. The reactor is stable, but we've lost most of our ship systems. We can't fight anymore. Medical officer Hae-won Kim was coordinating damage control teams throughout the vessel. We've got serious casualties this time. The power surge caused injuries on every deck. It seemed like the end. The indomitable spirit had struck a devastating blow against the enemy. But they were helpless now. The remaining Solarian ships could destroy them at will, but something unexpected was happening in the space around Jupiter. The electromagnetic pulse from the flagship's destruction was spreading outward like a wave, interfering with the advanced computer systems of every nearby Solarian vessel. The enemy ships are losing power, Minho reported with amazement. Their networked computer systems are experiencing cascade failures. Dr. Young-Soo Han's ancient AI design was proving its worth one final time. While the Solarian ships relied on interconnected computer networks that were vulnerable to electromagnetic interference, the indomitable spirit's isolated systems remained functional. Taemin was receiving urgent transmissions from the human fleet near Mars. Captain, the rest of our ships are launching a counterattack. The enemy fleet is in complete disarray. Through the main viewer, they could see the tide of battle turning across the solar system. Human ships that had been retreating hours earlier were now pressing forward, taking advantage of the chaos in enemy ranks. The Solarian Grand Armada, which had seemed invincible just moments before, was falling apart. Without their flagship and commanding admiral, the alien fleet lost its coordination. Individual ship captains began making their own decisions, some trying to retreat while others attempted to continue the attack. The perfect formations that had been their strength became a liability, as ships collided or fired on their own forces by mistake. Lieutenant Jae Hyun managed to get one of the secondary weapons online. Captain, I've got limited power to the point defense guns. It's not much, but we can still fight. As if summoned by his words, 3 damaged Solarian ships limped toward their position, seeking easy prey. But they had underestimated human determination. The crew of the Indomitable Spirit wasn't finished yet. Supply officer Soo-jin Yang had been working frantically in the ammunition storage areas. I found something in the emergency supplies, she announced over the intercom. We've got 12 nuclear warheads left over from the ship's original armament. The nuclear weapons were ancient by space warfare standards, but they were still devastatingly effective. So Young loaded them into the remaining missile tubes while Yoon-ji calculated firing solutions. The attacking Solarian ships expected an easy victory over the crippled human vessel. Instead, they flew directly into a nuclear ambush. The warheads detonated simultaneously, creating a chain of atomic explosions that vaporized all three enemy ships. Across the solar system, the battle was ending. The surviving Solarian ships, leaderless and confused, began retreating toward the outer planets. Some tried to surrender while others simply fled into deep space. Fleet Admiral Kyung-Ho Shin's voice came over the communication system, filled with emotion. "All ships, this is Admiral Shin. The enemy fleet is in full retreat. We have won the battle for Earth." Cheers erupted throughout the human fleet, but the crew of the Indomitable Spirit was too exhausted to celebrate. They had given everything they had to achieve this victory. "Captain," Dong-hyun said quietly, "we did it. We actually did it." Hyun-woo looked around the damaged bridge at his crew. They were battered and exhausted, but they had proven that human determination could overcome any technological advantage. Rescue ships from the human fleet began arriving to provide assistance. The Indomitable Spirit would need extensive repairs before it could fight again, but it had already earned its place in history. Months later, when the battle reports were written and the medals were awarded, military historians would struggle to explain how humanity had defeated a technologically superior enemy. The answer was simple but profound. They had remembered that wars are won by people, not machines. The Solarian Empire, shaken by their devastating defeat, would eventually sue for peace. The galaxy learned that humans were not the primitive species they had appeared to be, but a force that could adapt, innovate, and fight with a determination that no advanced technology could match. And at the center of it all was an obsolete prototype warship and its crew, who had refused to accept that newer was always better. The Indomitable Spirit became the template for a new generation of human warships, built on the principle that sometimes the old ways were the best ways. The galaxy would never underestimate humanity again.